And I'm so glad you're in charge about this.
Thank you for letting me be in charge of it.
Assembly members, if we could, you're very important. If we could have
Everybody here's
I'm hanging out with these guys.
I'm taller than I am. I'm a mom. I know how to make it.
Yeah.
Oh man, you gotta change the way for the sun. They're gonna be like, does she have eyes?
All right. Where's my friend Dave Rowland? We good, Dave? Everyone good? All right.
No, I think you're fine. Your buddies may. Yeah.
Good morning. All right. Everyone looks great. Dave Rowland, you got me the thumbs up? All right. Very good. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Thank you to all of you for being here this morning. I want to start by acknowledging the person that is convening us today is our Senate President Pro Tempore, Toni Atkins. Thank you, Senator, for bringing us all together this morning. We are joined by my Assembly colleagues, Dr. Shirley Weber and Assemblymember Tasha Berner-Horvath. Here. You'll be hearing from both of them in a moment, as well as Keith Maddox from the San Diego Imperial County's Labor Council, Diane Takvorian from the Environmental Health Coalition, and Matt O'Malley from San Diego Coastkeeper. Guys, give it up for our friends here. And just by introduction, we also have numerous representatives from a bunch of different groups here today, but want to specifically acknowledge and thank the San Diego River Conservancy, Climate Action Campaign, and a number of our local labor unions for being with us all this morning. So today we are gathered here alongside San Diego Bay, one of our region's most iconic and treasured natural resources. It is by, of course, quintessential San Diego view. What you may not know is that bodies of water like the Bay across California are prone now more than ever to pollution and to contamination. And while we are gathered here outdoors, breathing air which would seem to be clean, what you may not know is that more air pollution is destined in our near future. Even more concerning is the workers of this nation, like many of those here today, are more at risk now more than ever to being exposed to toxic hazards in their workplace. This is all because over the last 2 years, the Trump administration has chosen to roll back environmental and workplace protections that keep us all safe, our air and water clean, and our workers healthy. However, despite the federal administration's desire to roll back these protections for our environment and for our workers, California will not be rolling with them. That is why today we are here to announce the advancement of key legislation, Senate Bill 1, which is authored by our very own Senate President Pro Tem, Toni Atkins. Now, she's going to tell you a little bit more about Senate Bill 1, but just in summary, it is the California Environmental, Public Health, and Workers' Defense Act of 2019. And it provides that for any federal environmental or worker safety standard that is in place as of January 1st, 2017, will remain in effect and be enforceable under California law, even if the federal government repeals it. This is an essential piece of legislation that will ensure that our environment, our natural resources are preserved, and our workers and our consumers are protected. And I would applaud Senator Atkins because this week, Senate Bill 1 cleared its first hurdle when it was approved by the Senate Environmental Quality Committee and will now be considered by other Senate committees before heading to a full vote of the Senate. And I think I can speak for Dr. Weber and Tasha. We hope to see it in the Assembly very, very soon. As I've mentioned a couple times now, this bill is the brainchild of our own Senator Toni Atkins. I can tell you that Senator Atkins does not wake up every morning looking for a fight. What she does do is wake up every morning to work for what is right. And if that means that she has to stand up for workers and for our environment by taking on the President of the United States, you know that's exactly what Toni Atkins is going to do. And for my money, it's on Toni Atkins to win that fight. So to share some more about Senate Bill 1, please join me in welcoming our Senate President Pro Tem, Toni Atkins.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Assemblymember Gloria. That last couple of sentences left me speechless, but I have to tell you a few things. First, I want to thank my colleagues for being here, particularly my Assembly colleagues and members of our local delegation, along with so many people who are engaged in environmental protection issues, worker protection, endangered species. Look, this is profoundly personal to us. Many of us come from backgrounds and stories, and we have spent decades some of us decades and decades, really working very hard to ensure that we have these protections. So I want to thank everyone for being here. It is critically important. You know, it's been roughly 2 years and 2 months since the new administration took office in Washington, D.C. And during that time, over 34 different clean air, clean water, worker safety, and endangered species standards have been weakened or eliminated. I want to just mention a few. An executive order rolling back water quality protections like the Waters of the U.S. rule adopted under the Federal Clean Water Act. Another executive order weakening vehicle fuel efficiency standards adopted pursuant to the Federal Clean Air Act. And while we've made great strides on so many issues, air quality and pollution is worse in the state of California than anywhere else in the country. And I know that we have a speaker that will talk about that. Another executive order allowing, and this is near and dear to my heart, allowing importation of ivory and other body parts of threatened species such as elephants and rhinos. That is wrong. Still another executive order to stop disclosure of toxic hazards in the workplace that directly affects the work and the health of our workers. So as Assemblymember Gloria said, this is a simple piece of legislation. SB1 makes federal baseline standards for environmental and worker protection enforceable as a matter of state law, where the current administration in Washington, D.C. rolls them back. This administration is systematically under-enforcing our existing laws and regulations, allowing the fossil fuel industry to drill more, pollute more, and take less responsibility for their actions. Meanwhile, workplace fatality investigations are at a decade-high level under this administration, at the same time that worksite safety enforcement by OSHA is steadily declining. The administration has made no secret of its priorities when it comes to public health, environmental protection, and worker safety. They are simply not priorities at all. They remain our priorities here in California. Not only did the president appoint a coal lobbyist to run the U.S. EPA, but for the third year in a row, this administration has proposed a budget blueprint that would slash funding for the agency to a point where it would no longer be able to meaningfully do its job, enforcing our clean air and our water laws. We're talking about landmark protections passed by strong bipartisan majorities in Congress, many of them signed into law by a Republican president, Richard Nixon. It's just wrong. And it's out of touch with the will of the people of California, and obviously the folks behind me who represent so many Californians. Californians across party lines and in every corner of our state share a deep commitment to protect our environment and our natural resources. Look where we are. We have fought too hard and too long for safe working conditions to let this or any other administration undermine that progress. We know how important it is for our health and our prosperity even. We're not willing to go back to the wild, wild west of unchecked pollution, unaccountable employers who recklessly endanger their workers and our very environment. SB1 is California's insurance policy against the exploitation of our people, our environment, and our endangered species. It ensures that no matter what happens in Washington, California will continue to enjoy the same protection we've relied on for decades and fought so hard to put into place. So essentially, SB1 says, if Washington won't enforce our laws, California will. We'll do what it takes to preserve the quality of life that helps make California the Golden State. Thank you. Todd.
One more time for our Senate President Pro Tem, everybody. Thank you, Toni, for your leadership on behalf of our environment, on behalf of workers. Now to speak more on the environmental angle of this is the Executive Director of the Environmental Health Coalition, a fierce fighter for environmental justice, clean air, clean water, Diane Takavoyan. Diane?
Yes, this is the privileged location for those of us who are a little challenged on the height side. So, good morning. Thank you all, and sorry. Okay, we're good? All right, see? All the instruction, and thank you. Senator Atkins, great bill, and okay, I'm just going to hold it. How about that? Good morning, sorry. Thank you to Senator Atkins for saving me here and for introducing SB1 to protect public health, worker health, and the environment. Environmental Health Coalition is very, very pleased to support this important legislation. As a nearly 40-year-old environmental justice organization, we're dedicated to protecting the health of all Californians, especially those that live in the most impacted communities and those that work in the most hazardous industries. SB1 draws a bright line to defend California's commitment to protecting the people and its environment. San Diego has a serious air pollution problem. Air monitors in Chula Vista and El Cajon have indicated a human cancer risk of over 300 per million for pollutants that do not even include diesel particulate matter, the #1 cancer-causing pollutant in outdoor air. For children living in San Diego communities like Barrio Logan and National City and Logan Heights, the rate of asthma emergency room visits is 3 times the rate of average San Diegans. These health hazards and acute health problems are simply unacceptable. The American Lung Association's scorecard gave San Diego air quality an F, and an ozone pollution was ranked as the 6th worst in the whole country. ALA correctly used the federal standards to measure San Diego's air quality and that across the country. These are the very standards that are being assaulted by the federal government. I also have the privilege of serving on the California Air Resources Board, the entity that oversees air quality for the state. CARB and the California Attorney General are currently challenging the rollback of federal regulations in 14 separate air quality related lawsuits. Greenhouse gas emissions come largely from transportation and energy sources. We all know that. So where do you think the Trump administration is cutting regulations? One guess. Yes, that's right, transportation and energy. These rollback attempts include reductions in fuel efficiency and GHG reductions in passenger cars and trucks. California has made huge strides in vehicle pollution reduction, and the Trump administration is very much poised to reverse all of that. Excuse me. The Obama administration developed the Clean Power Plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from power plants, but the U.S. EPA has now proposed to repeal it. The most egregious example, in my view, is U.S. EPA's proposal that would ban U.S. EPA from considering almost all epidemiological data in public health standard setting, essentially prohibiting EPA from using science to set rules. EPA is proud to stand with Senator Atkins and the many supporters of SB1 to fight back against this assault on our health and our environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane. And to continue the theme of environmental quality is Matt O'Malley from San Diego Coastkeeper. Matt, come on up, give us a few words.
Thank you, thank you. On behalf of Coastkeeper, I'm delighted to stand here and support this bill, and thanks Senator Atkins for her important work on SB1. Today also turns out to be World Water Day, a day where throughout the world we celebrate and we pay attention to the importance of clean water. Whether it's right here along San Diego Bay to San Diego River, whether it's Chollas Creek or La Jolla Cove or Ocean Beach, these sort of places, spaces are really at the heart of who we are as San Diego. They define who we are, and they're vital to our way of life. And for nearly 50 years, the Clean Water Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act have served to provide the tools for us to protect these waters and to ensure that we have a safe access to clean water for our residents and our community. These laws really, when they were formed, were visionary and unique in that they recognized that environmental and public health protection were so vital that they empowered citizens with the right to enforce. So every one of us here today, either individually or collectively, has the right to stand up and say enough is enough, that we are going to take the law into our own hands and protect our communities. And for the better part of our 24-year history, that's exactly what Coastkeeper has done with great success in our region. We've been able to reduce our sewage spills to local waterways by over 90%. We've been able to protect and in some cases restore our coastal wetlands, which are providing now essential buffers to climate change and sea level rise that we're facing. And we've also been able to clean up our most polluting industries along this bay and in our neighborhoods and along our waterways. That's been some great success. But as mentioned before, we've never seen the type of threats to these protections as we've seen over the last few years. We see an EPA which is essentially stacked with industry giants who stand to profit from pollution at the expense of our waterways, our communities, and our health. And we've witnessed this firsthand, as Senator Atkins mentioned, by the drawback of the Waters of the U.S. rule. This is very real and have impacts on our environment here in our backyard. And so we're absolutely thrilled to have such a great ally and champion in Senator Atkins. And we think her and her team have really put together an essential stopgap measure in case federal rollbacks continue to happen. But I think much more than a much-needed insurance policy, SB1 really sends a loud and clear message that we as San Diegans care about our waterways and our water resources, and that we firmly believe in realizing the fundamental right to clean water for humans and the environment in San Diego. And so, again, on behalf of Coastkeeper and on World Water Day, I'm very proud to support Senator Atkins in her action, and we're looking forward to continue to working with her on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you to Coastkeeper and the Environmental Health Coalition for what you do collectively to protect our local environment. Another group that does its fair share for protecting the environment, as well as protecting our workers in the middle class in San Diego, is Keith Maddox from the San Diego Imperial County's Labor Council. Keith, come on up. Thank you.
So I'd like to thank Todd for championing this bill, as well as Toni, Madam Senate President, for always being there for workers and leading. You've heard conversations and discussions today from leading intellectuals and groups on the environment, which is critically important to our organization as well. But I'm gonna go more bluntly towards worker and the attacks on workers. Like Toni, I'm a Southerner, and we kind of like to tell it like it is. And I'll start out with, right off the bat, SB1 will protect California workers from the poison that is streaming out of the Trump White House every single day. Donald Trump and these wealthy right-winger cronies are stripping away the rights of working people every day. They do this quietly, like a billion-dollar CEO does from their corner office, quietly like an assassin stalking its prey. But the prey they have their sights set on is working people. Take safety on the job. As you heard Toni talk about, the number of deaths on the job is going up, the number of inspections are going down, the number of inspectors to do those inspections are going down. Thousands of workers die each year, every single year, and those numbers are increasing. Tens of thousands of workers are injured on the job or become sick because of unsafe working conditions or exposure to chemicals or improper ventilation in the workplace. Trump and his wealthy billionaire friends want to eliminate rules that make workplaces safe. They say that we don't need these laws anymore, that safety is where it needs to be in the workplaces. They're safe in their corporate suites. That puts all workers at risk, and that's just plain wrong. If you're a warehouse worker loading packages in San Isidro, if you're a tech worker coding in Sorrento Valley, if you're a construction worker building high-rises downtown, or if you're a nurse caring for patients in Hillcrest, you deserve to be safe at work. And as you heard Toni talk about, right-to-know legislation that they have scaled back tremendously. They also, I want to talk about a couple of other things that probably aren't necessarily covered in this bill, but goes to show the attacks on workers. The main thing is workers deserve to be treated fairly on the job and with respect, no matter your gender, your orientation, your race, or religion. They're rolling back federal laws that help workers fight employment discrimination every single day, just like they're rolling back the other laws. They think if you don't look like them, if you don't talk like them, you don't act like them, that it's okay to discriminate against you, to treat you differently, to treat you unfairly. They think it's okay if they don't pay you for your overtime or less because you're a woman or cheat you on your paycheck. We say that's just plain wrong. And I'll tell you something else. Trump doesn't want you to be able to fight back, doesn't want workers to have a say. The most safe workplace is those that have a union contract and have a safety committee on the job. And that's why Trump and his corporate friends have rolled back laws that allow workers to have a voice on the job. They have scaled back the rights for workers and made it more difficult for them to have a union and to form a union where they can sit down and bargain both their wages, but also over safety and health conditions inside of their work site. At the San Diego Imperial Labor Council, we represent over 200,000 working families. We're school bus drivers and teachers, we're nurses, grocery workers, researchers, tech workers, firefighters, and construction workers. We come from a wide variety of professions, and we stand together to help all workers. We're working people who want to be paid a fair day's wage for a fair day's work. We stand together to fight for safe working conditions and against discrimination on the job. We are proud to stand here in support of SB1, which protects every worker's right to a voice on the job, especially in their safety conditions. We're proud to support SB1 to prevent further erosion of worker rights and protections in California workplaces. This bill will save lives, and it will make California workplaces safe. Today, San Diego working people stand together with our Assembly members and Senate President Pro Tem Toni Atkins to support SB1. We call on every California legislature to support SB1 and protect workers, our communities, and our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith, and a special thanks to all of locals who are here. I see UDW, I see Unite Here, I see UFCW, and I see that the iron workers turned up in force today. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Local 229. Keith Maddox is an incredible leader, but he's also an extremely lucky man. Why? Because he went before Dr. Shirley Weber, Assembly member for the 79th District, chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus, to give a few words. Shirley, would you come on up, please? Thank you.
And they will be a few. I want to thank my colleagues and especially thank those who are here with us today to talk about and to support this very important bill. Have to thank, obviously, our President Pro Tem. We're very fortunate in San Diego to have her here in San Diego, but most importantly, to have her here in the state, a woman of courage, to fight for those things we believe in. I'm here really just to support this, to make sure that this bill is supported not only on her side of the House, but more importantly in the Assembly as well when it comes to us, because this is important. And we're in a crisis right now, we know, in this nation, where people, I was listening this morning, when people were saying, oh, that's just Trump. You know, he just basically changed all the politics in the Middle East, and it says, oh, that's just Trump. And that is not the way we want to take this situation. This is not just Trump. This is wrong. And we have to stand up for what we believe that is right. And this is a bill that says we have come a long way, but we have a long way to go. And we don't plan to turn around. We don't plan to retreat. We don't plan to leave behind those issues that are so critically important to all of us. You know, I'm probably old enough to know what it was like before most of this stuff took place. I was raised in Los Angeles. I lived in the Pueblos, the projects of Los Angeles. And I know that we lived right next to the train track and between a factory. And those of us who were, all of us at that time who were poor in the projects, had various health issues related to the environment in which we lived. And people didn't seem to pay attention to it because it was really just poor people basically being influenced by that. And so what happens is that you grow up with a lot of challenges in life. My father worked as a worker in the steel mills of Los Angeles, and very few of his friends ever lived long enough to retire. They were suffering from chronic conditions all the time, and most of them maybe retired, or if they did retire, they died shortly thereafter. And so we recognize the fact that those working conditions were undesirable. I grew up never knowing what the sky looked like because there was an orange ring around Los Angeles, and I could never tell the difference between, I thought smog was fog or fog was smog. I didn't know the difference between the two. And so when you come to that world, and every day there's a different alert you're giving. This is the orange alert, the red alert, this alert, and you grow up with that. You grow up as a teenager, as a college student. You then realize that life can be better as things begin to change, as we begin to address the issue of smog in California with the catalytic converters that some people don't remember, and all those kinds of things. We made a difference. We made a difference here in California for the lives of our citizens, and we still have a ways to go. And so we have to be very committed that we're not going to retreat, that we're not going to allow all the noise in Washington make us not see the small things that happen every day that's done in various tweets that undo the laws and the things that are really important to California. So I'm excited about this. I'm glad that we have a fighter as our President Pro Tem, but she's fighting for the right things and that we're not going to retreat. California is unique in the sense that we are not retreating, and we began 2 years ago with various kinds of legislation to basically make sure that we would not become the victims of Trump. And he understands that. And so this whole rollback sometimes of the environmental issues is really an attack on us. And it's an attack on who we are. And we have to continue to fight for it because it is our way of life. But more importantly, it is our contribution not only to California, but really to the world. The world looks at California and for environmental leadership, and we've been able to provide that, and we will continue to do that. So I want to thank my colleague, Toni Atkins, for basically authoring this bill. I want to thank all of the workers who've come, because this is something that we all work on together, because it affects every person here. It affects our children, our lives, and it affects our future. And we are committed to making sure that California continues to move forward in this issue of the environment and working conditions. So thank you so very much for being here, and thanks to my colleagues.
Well said, Dr. Weber. Yeah, so if Keith is the luckiest guy, the least lucky person here, who is a wonderful new colleague, a new addition, a breath of fresh air in the Assembly, Tasha Berner-Horvath, representing the 76th Assembly District. Tasha?
He had to practice for 3 hours to say my name. My name is Tasha Berner-Horvath. Thank you very much, Todd, and thank you, Toni, for having me here today. I represent the Assembly District 76. That's Encinitas, Carlsbad, Oceanside, Vista, and Camp Pendleton. And today you've heard lots of people talk about San Diego, and I'm here to tell you this is not just a San Diego issue. This is a North County San Diego issue. This is a Southern California issue. This is a California issue. And more than anything, I'm a policymaker, I am a businesswoman, I'm a third-generation Encinitan, but more than anything, I'm a mother. And when we look at what the rollback of these basic standards that I grew up with mean to the next generation, it is absolutely imperative that we hold the line, and that is what SB1 does, to make sure that our children have public health, they have safe and clean drinking water, that they can go to the beaches and not swim in polluted waters, that they could go, and when they go to work, that they know they're going to be safe, that they can retire with health and dignity. That's what these standards do. So it's such an honor to be here to represent the 76th and to show that this matters everywhere in California, and to really be a leader, because without our environment, especially the environmental protections, Encinitas, Carlsbad, Oceanside, Vista, we have 5 lagoons, we have watersheds throughout the district. This is a part of our quality of life, and it is part of everything we touch, everything we live. It matters to our innovation sector. It matters to our economy. So this is why I'm so proud to stand here as part of the strong San Diego delegation as a new member to support SB1 fully and wholeheartedly. And like my colleagues, I look forward to this coming over to the Assembly so that we can vote yes on the floor. Thank you very much.
Good job, Tasha. All right, Tasha was our final speaker. That brings us to the end of the program. One more round of applause for our Senate President Pro Tem for bringing us together, for taking this on, and keeping California at the leading edge of environmental protection and worker protection. Toni, final comments before we wrap up?
I want to thank everybody. Look, there were a lot of people that wanted to be here today. That tells you how important this is. And you've been very patient and tolerant to listen to each of us. We can talk about the baseline standards. I know my good friend Diane can tell you the difference between may and shall and the regulations, and we can watch your eyes glaze over as we talk about what this means line by line in the piece of legislation. But I think what you heard today that was more important was really the personal stories from workers, from environmentalists, from all sectors. It is about the economy. That is very true. You know, I grew up in Southwest Virginia in a place equally beautiful to this. And my introduction to environmental issues was in the form of water that was degraded by runoff from coal mines and things like that, mountain topping that took away our natural environment, and a father who went down into the lead mines. My dad would be 57 this year. I'm 57. Well, no, I will be 57 this year. My dad died at age 57. And I know that he probably helped that along a little bit, but it didn't help him that he had to go down into the mines, that he worked hard every single day of his life. He died. He couldn't sleep lying down. He had emphysema. Workplace protections are critical. And you see, that story is about how much he loved the environment but had to make decisions to support his family, much like the story you heard from Dr. Weber, who represents the Black Caucus here today as well as her community. But let me tell you, the people who are most disadvantaged by these issues that are being rolled back are vulnerable communities, communities of color, and basically working poor people. And it is up to us to make sure we don't roll those protections back. I can't help my dad today, but I can help every single person like my father who goes to work every day to make a living for their family, who loves this beautiful, beautiful place. How fortunate are we to be in San Diego? We are the ones that will hold the line, and it is up to us. And when I moved to California 34 years ago, I was so pleased to be here and to see that there was a commitment to families like mine, to workers like my dad, to protect the beautiful environment. We have done so much to get here today. And I want to thank my colleagues and my friends, because we will not allow this to be rolled back and to hurt any piece of what we protect so much in the quality of our lives every single day. I will end. We can talk with you individually if you want, any of the members of the press, and I want to thank you for being here. It's critical that you're here to help share this story and to get it right, because the message is clear and strong. This is about our very quality of life and our health and our worker protections. And lastly, I will just thank my assembly member, Todd Gloria. I have to have him organize things, because I'll get off base and start telling stories. Me and Keith, we're all about Southern oral histories. So I need my assembly member to keep me focused, and I want to thank him for corralling all of us today, especially and my colleagues. And thank you all for being here. This is one of the most important things that we will take on this year with Senate Bill 1. And I know that we are up to that challenge. Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.
We're adjourned. We have adjourned. We have adjourned the president.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about another bill. I'm curious if you're following.